The rain came down in sheets, hammering the roof of Jamie's beat-up Corolla like it wanted to drown him. He sat frozen in the driver's seat, the wipers long dead, staring at the flat tire through the blur of water and despair. Out here, on a lonely stretch of Route 17 in upstate New York, hope felt as distant as the life he was running toward. He was 22, chasing a dream that didn't even have a shape yet, just a feelinga life where he could breathe without hiding. Jamie gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles pale, the weight of his unspoken truth pressing against his chest. He'd left his small town of Willow Creek behind an hour ago, the place where everyone knew his name but not his heart, where whispers about that foster kid followed him like shadows. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat, snapping him out of his spiral. Mia's name lit up the screen. "Where the hell are you?" Her voice crackled through the speaker, sharp but warm, the way only your best friend since kindergarten could sound. "You said you'd be at my place by 6. Jamie. It's pouring, and I'm starving for pizza." "Flat tire," he muttered, his voice barely above the rain's roar. "I'm stuck on 17, maybe 10 miles out. No spare. No nothing." "Jesus. Jamie, you're a mess." Mia's laugh was half exasperated, half worried. "Stay put. I'm calling my dad. He's got the tow truck tonight." Jamie's stomach twisted. Mia's dad, Tom Hargrove, was the kind of man who filled a room without trying, broad-shouldered, calloused hands, a voice like gravel smoothed by years of kindness. He ran Hargrove's auto shop, the only garage in Willow Creek, and had been fixing cars since before Jamie was born. But Tom was also a deacon at First Baptist, a pillar of a town that didn't take kindly to people like Jamie, people who loved in ways the Sunday sermons called wrong. "Don't," Jamie said quickly. "I'll figure it out. I don't want to bother him." "Too late," Mia shot back. "He's already grabbing his keys. You know, tow a stranger's car in a hurricane. Sit tight. Okay." The call ended, and Jamie leaned back, the rain a relentless drumbeat. He didn't want Tom Hargrove out here. Not tonight. Not when Jamie was raw and unraveling. He'd spent years dodging questions about why he never dated, why he flinched at the word faggot tossed around at the diner. Mia knew he'd told her 2 years ago, crying in her bedroom after a homecoming dance where he'd faked a smile all night. She'd hugged him, fierce and unyielding, and promised to keep his secret until he was ready. But Tom was a different story. Headlights pierced the rain, a truck rumbling to a stop beside him. Tom stepped out, his work boots splashing in the puddles, a flashlight beam cutting through the dark. "Jamie Foster," he called, his voice carrying over the storm. "You trying to drown out here?" Jamie forced a smile, stepping out into the rain. "Didn't plan on it, Mr. Hargrove." Tom waved a hand, already kneeling by the flat tire. "Call me Tom. Kid. You're not in high school anymore." He glanced up, his graying beard catching the light, his eyes kind but searching. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Jamie lied, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets. The truth was, he wasn't fine. He was running to Albany, to a new job, a new life, where maybe he could be himself. But the flat tire felt like the universe laughing at him, trapping him in Willow Creek's orbit a little longer. Tom worked fast, his hands steady despite the rain. "Mia's worried about you," he said, not looking up. "Says you've been off lately. Something on your mind." Jamie's heart stuttered. "Just moving stress," he mumbled. "New job, new city." Tom nodded, but his silence felt heavy, like he was waiting for more. Jamie's pulse raced. He'd always liked Tom, respected him. Even. The man had taught him how to change a spark plug when he was 16. Had slipped him a 20 for gas when his mom was between jobs. But liking someone didn't mean trusting them with a truth that could break everything. The rain slowed to a drizzle as Tom finished, standing and wiping his hands on a rag. "You're good to go," he said. "But you're coming back to our place first. Mia's got pizza, and I'm not letting you drive to Albany in this weather." Jamie opened his mouth to protest, but Tom's hand landed on his shoulder, firm and warm. "No arguments, kid. Your family." The word hit Jamie like a punch. Family. He wanted to believe it, but family didn't always mean safety net for him. Not yet. At the Hargrove house, Mia tackled him with a hug the second he walked in, her short black hair damp from the rain. "You're an idiot for driving in that storm," she teased, shoving a slice of pepperoni pizza into his hands. The living room smelled of melted cheese and pine from the old wood floors, a warmth that clashed with the cold knot in Jamie's chest. Tom sat across from them, sipping a beer, his eyes flicking between Jamie and Mia. "So, Albany," he said. "Big move. You got a place lined up?" "Yeah," Jamie said, picking at his pizza. "A studio. Small, but it's mine." Mia grinned. "He's going to be a fancy graphic designer, Dad. Making logos for hipster coffee shops." Jamie managed a laugh, but it felt hollow. He wanted to say he was moving to Albany because it was a place where he could walk down the street holding a man's hand and not feel like he was risking his life. But the words stayed locked inside, where they'd always been. As the night wore on, Mia dragged him to the couch for a movie, but Jamie's mind was elsewhere. He kept stealing glances at Tom, who was flipping through a car magazine, oblivious to the storm in Jamie's head. What would Tom say if he knew? Would he still call him family? The question followed Jamie into the guest room that night, where he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He didn't know it yet, but that flat tire wasn't just a delay, it was the start of something bigger, something that would force him to face his fears and find a courage he didn't know he had. Morning broke over Willow Creek with a fragile kind of light, the kind that made the town's rolling hills look like they were holding their breath. Jamie woke in the Hargroves' guest room, the faint smell of coffee pulling him from a restless sleep. Downstairs, Mia was already blasting music, her voice belting out off-key lyrics to some pop song, while Tom flipped pancakes in the kitchen. "You sleep okay?" Tom asked as Jamie shuffled in, his hair a mess. The older man's eyes were steady, like he could see right through Jamie's forced smile. "Yeah, thanks," Jamie said, grabbing a mug. He avoided Tom's gaze, focusing on the steam rising from his coffee. Mia danced over, tossing a pancake onto his plate. "Eat up. Run away," she said, her grin teasing but her eyes soft. "You're not escaping to Albany without a proper breakfast." Jamie laughed, but it felt like a reflex. The truth was, he was itching to leave, not because he didn't love Mia or appreciate Tom's hospitality, but because every moment in Willow Creek felt like a tightrope walk. He'd spent years hiding who he was, dodging the town's judgment, the church's sermons, the sideways looks at the gas station. Albany was supposed to be his fresh start, but the flat tire had dragged him back, and now he was sitting in Tom Hargrove's kitchen, wondering if he'd ever be brave enough to stop running. After breakfast, Mia dragged him to the garage to help with an oil change, though she mostly just handed him tools and talked his ear off about her new job at the library. "You're gonna miss me when you're in Albany, surrounded by city snobs," she said, poking his arm. "I'll survive," Jamie shot back, but his chest ached. Mia was his anchor, the one person who knew he was gay and loved him anyway. Leaving her felt like leaving half of himself behind. Tom appeared in the garage doorway, wiping his hands on a rag. "Jamie, you mind giving me a hand with something?" he asked, his tone casual but firm. Jamie's stomach dropped. He followed Tom to the back of the shop, where an old Mustang sat on a lift, its red paint chipped but proud. "This beauty's been here a month," Tom said, running a hand over the hood. "Guy who owns it is moving to California. Asked me to fix it up before he goes." Jamie nodded, unsure why Tom was telling him this. He wasn't a mechanic, just a kid who'd helped out here a few summers ago. But Tom handed him a wrench and pointed to the undercarriage. "Hold this steady for me." They worked in silence for a while, the clank of tools filling the space. Then Tom spoke, his voice low. "You know, Jamie, I've seen a lot of kids come through this town. Some stay, some go. But the ones who leave usually running from something." Jamie's grip on the wrench tightened. "I'm not running," he said, too quickly. "Just starting over." Tom didn't look at him, just kept working. "Starting over's good. But you can't start fresh if you're carrying old weight." Jamie's throat closed up. He wanted to ask what Tom meant. Wanted to spill everything, how he'd known he was gay since he was 13. How he'd lied to his mom, his friends, his whole damn town just to survive. But fear kept the words locked away. Tom was a good man, but good men could still turn cold when faced with a truth they didn't understand. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Mia insisted on a hike to Willow Creek's old quarry, a place they'd spent countless summers swimming and dreaming. As they sat on the rocks, the water below glinting in the sun, Mia nudged him. "You're quiet today. What's going on in that head of yours?" Jamie stared at the horizon, the weight of her question pressing down. "Just nervous," he admitted. "Albany's a big change." She leaned against him, her shoulder warm against his. "You're going to be fine, Jamie. You're stronger than you think." He wanted to believe her, but strength felt like a foreign language. He'd spent so long hiding, so long pretending, that being himself felt like stepping off a cliff. That evening, back at the Hargrove house, Tom pulled Jamie aside after dinner. "Got something for you," he said, leading him to the garage. There, on a workbench, was a small wooden box, carved with simple but careful lines. "Made it years ago," Tom said, handing it to him. "Figured you could use it in Albany. Keep your important stuff safe." Jamie ran his fingers over the smooth wood, his chest tight. "Why me?" he asked, barely a whisper. Tom's eyes met his, steady and kind. "Because you're a good kid, Jamie. And I know you're carrying something heavy. You don't have to tell me what I just know I'm here." Jamie's breath caught. He clutched the box, unable to speak, the weight of Tom's words sinking in. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to carry it all alone. The next morning, Jamie stood in the Hargroves' driveway, his car keys heavy in his hand. The sun was too bright, the air too crisp, like the world was mocking his indecision. He was supposed to leave for Albany today, but every step toward his Corolla felt like wading through mud. Mia appeared beside him, her arms crossed. "You look like you're about to bolt or puke," she said, her tone half teasing, half concerned. "What's stopping you, Jamie?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. How could he explain the terror of leaving everything familiar, even if it was a cage? Albany was freedom, but freedom was a gamble, and he'd never been good at betting on himself. Before he could answer, Tom's truck rumbled into the driveway, back from an early tow job. He climbed out, his work boots crunching on the gravel. "You still here, Jamie?" he called, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Thought you'd be halfway to Albany by now." "Car's fixed," Jamie said, gesturing to the Corolla. "Just taking my time." Tom studied him for a moment, then nodded toward the garage. "Come with me. Got something to show you." Inside, the Mustang from yesterday gleamed under the fluorescent lights, its red paint polished to a mirror shine. Tom leaned against it, his expression unreadable. This car's owner's a guy named Marcus. Moved to Willow Creek a few years back. Kept to himself. Folks around here didn't take to him much. Jamie frowned, unsure where this was going. "Why not?" Tom sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Small towns, Jamie. People get set in their ways. Marcus is different. Lives with his partner, David. They're good people, but you know how this place is. Whispers turn into walls." Jamie's heart stopped. He stared at Tom, searching his face for judgment, for disgust, but found none. "You're saying they're gay?" His voice was barely audible. Tom nodded. "Yeah. And they've had it rough. But Marcus came by yesterday, told me he's selling this car to start a new life in California, where they can be themselves." Sound familiar? Jamie's knees felt weak. He gripped the workbench. The wooden box Tom had given him still tucked under his arm. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, his voice shaking. Tom's eyes softened. "Because I see you, Jamie. I see the way you carry yourself, like you're afraid of taking up space. I don't know your story, not all of it, but I know you're scared. And I'm telling you, you don't have to be." The words hit like a tidal wave. Jamie's vision blurred, tears burning his eyes. He wanted to run, to hide, but Tom's steady gaze held him in place. "I'm not," he started, then stopped. The lie wouldn't come. "Not this time." "You don't have to say it," Tom said gently. "But if you ever want to, I'm listening." Jamie's chest heaved. He turned away, clutching the box like a lifeline, his mind racing. Tom knew her at least. He suspected. And instead of judgment, he was offering what? Acceptance. Understanding. It felt too big, too impossible. Mia burst into the garage, oblivious to the tension. "Dad, you're hogging my best friend." "Jamie, come on. I'm stealing you for lunch before you ditch us for Albany." Tom chuckled, breaking the moment. "Go on, kid. But think about what I said." Lunch was at Rosie's Diner, the only place in Willow Creek that hadn't changed since Jamie was a kid. Mia chattered about her plans to visit him in Albany, but Jamie barely heard her. His mind was stuck on Tom's words, on Marcus and David, on the possibility that maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. As they walked back to the Hargrove house, Mia nudged him. "You're doing it again," she said. "That quiet thing. Spill it, Jamie." He stopped, the words bubbling up before he could stop them. "What if I'm not who everyone thinks I am?" He whispered. "What if I'm different?" Mia's eyes softened. She grabbed his hand, squeezing it tight. "Then you're still you," she said fiercely. "And I love you. Always will." Tears spilled down Jamie's cheeks, and for the first time, he didn't try to hide them. Mia pulled him into a hug, her arms a safe harbor in the storm of his fears. But even as he clung to her, he knew the hardest part was still coming, telling Tom, telling his mom. telling the world. That night, Jamie sat on the guest room bed, the wooden box in his lap. He opened it, finding a small note inside, written in Tom's careful handwriting, for the road ahead. You're braver than you know. Jamie's heart swelled, and for the first time, he started to believe it. The road to Albany stretched out before Jamie like a promise. But as he packed his car the next morning, doubt gnawed at him. He'd spent the night replaying Tom's words, Mia's fierce support, the weight of the wooden box now tucked in his backpack. Leaving Willow Creek was supposed to be his escape, but now it felt like he was running from a truth he was finally ready to face. Mia leaned against the Corolla, her arms crossed. You're going to call me every day, right? She said, her voice light, but her eyes serious. I'm not losing you to some city hipster life. Jamie managed a smile. Every day, he promised. You're stuck with me. Tom emerged from the house, a thermos of coffee in his hand. For the road, he said, handing it to Jamie. And one more thing to be a stranger. This town's your home, no matter where you go. Jamie nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to say something thank you. I'm scared. I'm gay, but the words tangled in his chest. Instead, he hugged Tom, the older man's arms steady and warm, like an anchor in a storm. The drive to Albany was quiet, the radio humming softly as Jamie's thoughts churned. He'd rented a small studio in the city's arts district, a place where rainbow flags hung in shop windows and nobody batted an eye at two men holding hands. It was everything Willow Creek wasn't. But as he pulled into the city, the freedom he'd craved felt overwhelming, like a language he didn't yet speak. His first week in Albany was a blur of unpacking, starting his graphic design job, and navigating a city that felt both thrilling and lonely. He texted Mia constantly, her sarcastic replies keeping him grounded. But it was Tom's note, tucked in the wooden box, that he returned to every night. You're braver than you know. One evening, Jamie wandered into a coffee shop near his apartment, drawn by the warm glow of string lights and the murmur of conversation. Inside, a group of people his age laughed at a corner table, their ease with each other pulling at something in Jamie's chest. One of them, a guy with dark curls and a bright smile, caught his eye and waved him over. I'm Ethan, he said, offering a hand. You look like you could use a friend. Jamie hesitated, then sat down, the group's warmth washing over him. They were artists, activists, dreamers, people who lived openly, unapologetically. Ethan, a painter, talked about his boyfriend with a casual pride that made Jamie's heart ache. For the first time, he saw a life he could have, one where he didn't have to hide. Over the next few weeks, Jamie and Ethan grew close, their coffee shop chats turning into late-night walks, then tentative dates. Ethan's hand in his felt like a revelation, like a piece of himself he'd locked away, finally breaking free. But even as he fell for Ethan, the shadow of Willow Creek lingered. He hadn't told his mom. He hadn't told Tom. And the thought of going back off facing the town that had shaped him felt like walking into a fire. One night, Ethan asked him to a local pride event, a small festival in a park near the river. Jamie froze, the word pride conjuring images of judgment, of sermons, of his mom's disappointed eyes. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted, his voice small. Ethan took his hand, his gaze steady. You don't have to be ready, he said. You just have to show up. Jamie went, his heart pounding as he stepped into a sea of color rainbow flags. Laughter, music. He felt exposed, but also alive, like he was finally breathing after years underwater. Ethan stayed by his side, his presence a quiet strength. As they danced under the stars, Jamie realized he was falling in love not just with Ethan, but with the person he was becoming. But the high didn't last. A week later, Mia called, her voice tight. "Jamie, you need to come home. It's Mom. She's not doing great." Jamie's world tilted. His mom, Ellen, had been his rock, even if she didn't know the whole truth about him. He packed a bag and drove back to Willow Creek, the familiar roads tightening around him like a noose. At the hospital, he found Mia and Tom waiting, their faces grim. Ellen had collapsed at a heart scare. The doctors said she'd be okay, but she needed rest, and Jamie's world felt like it was crumbling. That night, in the hospital waiting room, Tom sat beside him. "She's tough," he said. "Like you." Jamie shook his head, tears burning his eyes. "I'm not tough. I'm terrified." Tom's hand rested on his shoulder. "Fear doesn't mean you're weak, Jamie. It means you're human." The words unlocked something in Jamie. As he sat by his mom's bedside, watching her sleep, he knew he couldn't keep hiding. Not from her, not from himself. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. Jamie sat by his mom's hospital bed, the steady beep of the monitor keeping time with his racing heart. Ellen's eyes fluttered open, her smile weak but warm. "You didn't have to come all the way back, sweetheart," she said, her voice hoarse. "I'm fine." "You're not fine," Jamie said, his throat tight. "And I'm not leaving you." He stayed in Willow Creek for a week, helping his mom settle back home, cooking her meals, and dodging her questions about Albany. Every night, he talked to Ethan on the phone, his voice a lifeline across the miles. "I want to tell her," Jamie said one night, his voice barely a whisper. "But what if she hates me?" "She won't," Ethan said, his certainty a bomb. "She loves you. Just give her a chance." On the 7th day, Jamie found his mom in the living room, flipping through an old photo album. Pictures of him as a kid gap-toothed, carefree stared back at him, a reminder of a time before he'd learned to hide. He sat beside her, his heart pounding. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking. "There's something I need to tell you." Ellen looked up, her eyes soft but searching. "What is it, Jamie?" He took a breath, the words he'd held back for years spilling out. "I'm gay. I've known for a long time. And I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared you'd stop loving me." The silence that followed was deafening. Ellen's face was unreadable, and Jamie braced himself for rejection. But then she reached for his hand, her grip weak but firm. "Jamie," she said, tears in her eyes. "You're my son. Nothing will ever change that." He broke down, sobs shaking his shoulders as she pulled him into a hug. It wasn't perfect, she admitted. She didn't understand everything, that it would take time, but it was a start. For the first time, Jamie felt like he could breathe in his own home. The next day, he went to the Hargrove house, the wooden box in his hands. Tom was in the garage, working on a truck, but he stopped when he saw Jamie. "You okay, kid?" he asked, wiping his hands. Jamie nodded, his voice steady for the first time in days. "I told my mom. About me. About who I am." Tom's face broke into a smile, pride shining in his eyes. "That's a big step, Jamie. I'm proud of you." The words hit harder than Jamie expected. He handed Tom the box. "I want you to have this back," he said. "Not because I don't want it, but because you gave me something bigger. You made me feel like I could be myself." Tom took the box, his expression soft. Keep being you, Jamie. That's all I've ever wanted. Months later, Jamie stood in Albany's Pride Festival again, Ethan's hand in his. Mia was there, too, visiting for the weekend, her laughter loud and unapologetic as she waved a tiny rainbow flag. Tom had sent a text that morning. Have fun, kid. You've earned it. As the music pulsed and the crowd cheered, Jamie looked at Ethan, at Mia, at the life he was building. The flat tire on Route 17 had been a detour, not a dead end. It had led him to Tom's kindness, to his mom's love, to a courage he hadn't known he had. He wasn't running anymore. He was home, not in Willow Creek, not in Albany, but in the truth he'd finally claimed as his own. The festival lights blurred as Jamie leaned into Ethan, his heart full. The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was his, and he was ready to walk it, one brave step at a time.